Hi all, this is Brandy. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to continue with our card series. I did last week, we did a video on how to make cards with images you may have already colored, because I color lots of images and then unfortunately never get around to making cards. So this is just an example of what we're going to do today. I took images that I had already colored and used a Distress Oxide emboss resist background, which we're going to make today. Some may know how to do this. It's not a new technique, but others may not, so I wanted to share how to do it. It's also just fun. You could do these literally for hours. So this is one that I made, and then another one. When I made these backgrounds, I actually made them on large pieces of paper, and then I just came back and cut them down. So that's another great way you can make a lot of cards at one time. And then here's the last one. This was also some flowers that I had colored before. The colors don't really go very well with the butterfly, but you know, you do what you do, and someone will still love it. Don't always overthink everything. Still a beautiful color palette. So today we are going to work with this image that I colored and use my scan and cut to cut out. Very cute. I think I use looks like pencils, probably Prismacolor or my Polychromos pencils to color it. I hope I'm in frame. I'm still getting used to this. So the first thing we're going to do is make our Distressed Oxide background. And the colors we're going to use that I thought would work great with this were Mermaid Lagoon, Picked Raspberry, and Wilted Violet. So those are the three colors we're going to use. This is kind of a sample I did last night just to see how all the colors would work. I did not do the resist on this. So we're going to do the resist this morning. Now the first thing we're going to do is stamp, and I chose these stamps are from the Hero Arts Flowers for Coloring stamp set. Hero Arts did not have it on their site anymore, but I found it at scrapbook.com. But it's a really fun stamp set. You can color the images and then die cut them. I bought the die set also. Cut them out and make little bouquets. So I really like this set. Today we're going to use 3 small flowers from that set because we're going to basically make our own background paper. I have a piece of Canson XL watercolor paper, which I've told y'all before I don't really like it for watercoloring, but it's great for doing things with oxides. And this looks like it's 5 inches by 2 1/4. My brain's not working today. By 3 1/4. I'll get it right in a second. Yes, 5 by 3 1/4. You know it's early in the morning when you can't read a ruler. All right, so we are going to use our anti-static tool. If you don't have one of these, you can put a little bit of cornstarch in a sock. It does the same thing. It's basically taking all the moisture out of the paper so you don't get stuff sticking where you don't want it. Okay, I had a Swiffer, but I don't know where I stuck it. I cleaned off my desk before I started this, and the bad part about that is even when my desk is piled sky high with stuff, I know where everything is, so it's kind of crazy. All right, so we're going to use our Versamark ink. It is a embossing ink pigment, which means it's a sticky ink, so our embossing powder is going to stick to it. So we're just going to stamp randomly on this paper because we're just making it background. And you won't be able to see where you're stamping, unfortunately. If you kind of tilt it, you can tell a little bit, but this is a very textured paper, and we're going for like a more organic look. Looks like I didn't clean one of my stamps very well. That's the bad part about that, but I can kind of see where I stamp because of that stamp. But we're going to use white embossing powder, so it's going to cover up the part where I didn't clean the stamp well. Our image is pretty large that we're putting on top of it, so it's really not a huge deal. Now we're going to sprinkle the embossing powder, or I'm going to sprinkle the embossing powder on here. This is a fine detail embossing powder. It works a little better when you're working with a textured surface to get into all the little nooks and crannies. This one is by Recollections. I reorganized my embossing powders yesterday, and I figured out I own way too many embossing powders. You can see I left a big empty spot there, but that's okay because our image is large and you're not going to see the whole thing. You could, after you embossed it, go back, but we're not going to do that. I'm going to dump this back in and make a huge mess because that's how I roll. I'm always making huge messes, especially when I eat. All right, so we're going to set that aside, and I'm going to use this rag to wipe this excess embossing powder up. We don't want to melt it onto my glass mat, which I'm sure it would just scrape right up. That's one of the great things about this glass mat. It's pretty indestructible. I mean, I'm sure you could destroy it if you tried, so let's not challenge ourselves. All right. Okay, so now we're just going to emboss this, warm up the heat tool, and I apologize for the noise again. Hard to do embossing on camera because it is noisy. All right. This should heat up pretty quickly because it's a fine detail. And you'll see it'll change. Kind of gets a white creamy look to it, a little shiny once you heat it up. And remember, this is on textured paper, so it's not going to be 100% perfect. You can tell this one over here didn't melt all the way. All right. So there, I don't know if y'all can see that. There's our, well, I put it where the camera is. Maybe you can see it. There's our flowers. Oops, wrong button. Set that aside. And we're going to let that cool off just a little bit. So while that's cooling off, I still have embossing powder everywhere. Man, the Swiffer is great for cleaning up embossing powder. It's a little Swiffer cloth, and you're supposed to use it with the Swiffer little floor sweeper thing, but it works great for cleaning off your, the area where you're embossing. All right. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to put down some wilted violet. And our Mermaid Lagoon. Move this napkin out of the way, and we don't want to get it on our girl. All right, I'm just going to spray this. This is just a little mini mister. You can use any sprayer, and we're just going to dip it. Like I said, this is very addictive. It's one of those things you could sit here and take a huge stack of paper and do it for hours. This really got me back into stamping. I saw a demonstration on these when they first came out, and I hadn't stamped for a good many years, and I just fell in love with this technique. It's just a lot of fun. Okay, so here is our thing so far. I'm liking how that's looking. I love the mix of the colors you get. It's really, really pretty, and you can see how it really makes our flowers stand out. Now we have a little bit of pulling over here on the sides, so I'm just going to take this napkin and dab that a little bit. Now just keep in mind wherever you dab is going to make it a little bit whiter because you're dabbing off a lot of the color. So we're just going to I'm just going to wipe this up. I'm trying a lot of different experimentation things, and I've been doing napkin decoupage. And so I'm thinking if I use this napkin, I can maybe use it to decoupage a background. So we'll have to see how that works out. But that's what that's why I'm using a napkin instead of my towel. All right, and we're gonna dab over the flowers, and you can kind of see how that white just really pops. It's beautiful. Now we're gonna go in with the pink. I love the picked raspberry. It's such a pretty bright color. Now you could wait for this to dry all the way, but because we're doing the video and I don't want to learn how to edit, we're not gonna wait. We're just gonna see what happens. So let's spray this. And I don't want a ton of pink, so let's just get a little dip here and there. Ooh, that looks really pretty. I don't like that one spot there that, okay. Now the one great thing about the Distress Oxides is you can layer them on top of each other. They are an opaque, like a hybrid ink between pigment and dye ink, and that's one of the neat things about them. You can just, once they dry, you can just layer them and layer them and layer them and just get these super cool backgrounds. Like I say, most people know this, but there may be some newer people to my channel that are new to stamping, so I just want to kind of explain that. All right, I'm loving how that's looking, so we're just going to go ahead and wipe this up. Now I want there to be some water spots on here, so I'm just going to take this and kind of tap it. This thing sprays too fine to get water spots. Okay. Find a clean spot on our napkin and just block that up. You have some nice water spots going. Look how pretty that turned out. I really like that. Love it. So many pretty colors. I just love the mix of the colors. So pretty. Here's a more water spot. Okay, so I'm gonna set that over there to dry all the way. And we're going to take our image, and I've shown y'all this before. You can tell I was new using my scan and cut, so I ripped the paper some because I didn't cut it all the way through. But I like to do this. You don't have to do this. This is something I like to do. I just feel like it makes your images stand out a little bit more, especially when you're putting them against a busier background. We are going to use some foam tape to pop this up. So this probably isn't 100% necessary, but it's still fun. I hope everybody's having a great day. This is Friday that I'm doing this, so it's almost time for the weekend. Planning on doing some crafting over the weekend and possibly pulling out a quilt. It's a small quilt that I started when my daughter, who is 11 now, when I was pregnant with her, and I still haven't finished it. And it's crazy that I haven't finished it because I'm almost done with it. Pretty much all it needs is the binding, which if you don't quilt or know a lot about quilts, that's just the finished edge that you put around the border of the quilt so you can't see the sandwich between the fabrics and the batting. But it's a small quilt. I had made it to go like cover her up when she's in the car seat. So now I don't know if I want to keep it like that type of quilt or if I want to make it more of a wall hanging. I may post a picture on Instagram or Facebook and get some suggestions from people, or because I want to sell it. I mean, it's not, you know, expert level work, because we've already discussed that I'm not an expert in anything. But I've learned that, you know, most people buy handmade because they're not looking for perfection. They just want that nice handmade look. All right. So we've gotten that all done, and I really don't like whatever paper I use bleeds. So if I would have known it was going to bleed so bad, I don't know if you can see where it bled right there. I probably wouldn't have done the marker. But live and learn, right? I colored this image so long ago, I have no idea what paper I used for it anyway. So next thing we're going to do is I have this huge roll of foam tape. It is expensive to invest in these rolls. They do last a very long time though, but if you don't want to use this, they sell these at like Hobby Lobby, Michael's, probably on Amazon, I'm sure, but they're just little dot squares, and you can use those too. So don't think you have to have this, you know, a foam tape. This will still like roll. You can still do it. So I want to cover the majority of my image in foam tape. I want it to have some dimension. So I'm going to cut off some of this. And you kind of just have to piece things on. It's kind of like a puzzle. You just want to make sure you don't overhang the edge, because you don't want to see it on the other side, of course. No one's going to see the back, so no matter, you know, nobody's ever going to see what this looks like except y'all right here now on camera. So it really doesn't matter how many pieces you put on there. And you don't have to cover it completely. I just don't want it to have any spots that are super saggy. So if you decide to mail this to someone, it doesn't get squished down in one spot in the mail. Now keep in mind, if you add a lot of dimension to your cards, it is going to cost more to mail them. The post office has standards as far as the change in thickness and it going through machines and being able to be machined. So just keep that in mind, that it will cost a little extra to mail something if you add a lot of dimension to it. But if you're just handing it to somebody in person, putting it on a package, you don't have to worry about all that. Well, I was trying to make this piece work, but it's a little bit too thick. Okay, only other spot I want to get is right there on her leg, because I don't want that to get smushed. And then we'll put this over here. Okay. So just going to take all this off. Now you could do like when I did with stickers, how you put a little bit of glue on there. This is a textured piece of paper, so you could do that. The glue, I'm using a liquid glue to glue this onto the card because of the because it is thicker. So you may want to add a little for that. It feels dry, so I think it'll stick to it well. We are going to add a little bit of glue on there just in case it's still a little damp. It won't mess with our tape. This is not a necessary step. Let's see. I want more flowers, I think, at the top. So we're going to put her. And I will say, I've noticed that if I'm making something on camera, I have a harder time making things centered and straight because you can't put your head right over it. But in the end, the only people who are going to pretty much notice stuff like that are the person making the card. Most people you give a handmade card to, they're just like so excited that you gave them something that you made yourself, and it's way better than something that they think they could personally do. So there's usually no judgment there. We are much harder on ourselves than other people. Now, I just wanted to show an example, and of course, these colors do not match, but I just wanted to show you how, if you don't have colored images, you can use these like die cut pieces that you can get in packs, or stickers, and you can use the foam tape and make a card just as pretty, and that way you can have fun making all your backgrounds, and you don't have to worry about coloring images or cutting things out. This would make gorgeous cards just doing something like this. You could either use sentiments that are in a sticker pack, or if you have a sentiment stamp set. I have this one from Clearly Besotted, and this is still available. It's called Tiny Talk. I'll link it below, but it has so many different sentiments in here. You can really use it for every occasion. That's one of the reasons I got it. So I just wanted to let you know that, because some people don't like to color and they don't want to cut things out, and they want to make a card for someone. So that's a great way to do it. So I have this piece of cardstock that was cut. It is just a regular 8.5 by 11 piece of cardstock. Instead of cutting it in half widthwise, I cut it in half lengthwise. So you were going to cut it at 4 1/4, and then we're going to fold it in half to make our card. And this just makes a little bit different card than what you traditionally find. I had cut a ton of bases like this, and I had totally forgot all about it. I went digging through my drawer to find bases to make this, and I found this huge stack of card bases that I had cut, and I did not even remember doing it. So I may be making some cards this weekend, because I do still have that basket full of cards that I have, you know, images that I've started, and some just basically need I'm sorry, my brain zoned out. Some of them, all they need is to be put on a card base. They don't, in a sentiment, they don't really need much else. I was thinking about putting this So Sweet on here, but it really gets lost. So I don't think I'm gonna go that direction. This is also something that you can do. You can take your background paper and use it die cut some sentiments out of it. I also have this thanks that I had done, but those just get lost. So what we're going to do, I'm gonna go ahead and glue this down. And we'll use one of our Tiny Talk sentiments to put something on there. Now I know I'm probably not going to get this centered. I pretty much never get anything in my life centered or straight. If you look at things hanging on my walls, I have to take a level, because I'm always going to hang them crooked. I can tell right now it has more room on this side, but I'm not going to try to peel it up and move it. I mean, it's homemade. It's, you know, it's something that is not going to be perfect, and that's okay. All right, that looks so pretty. I love how she looks popped up on that image. On that background. So let's see, I have all of these. Wow, there's so many of them. What do I think she's saying? Thinking of you. Let's use the thinking of you. I really like to just send cards to let people know I'm thinking about them when I actually sit down and make cards. Now, I learned a lesson earlier when I was making the other cards. I am very bad at stamping. Yes, it is true. I taught stamping for years and I still can't stamp. Yeah, I did not do a very good job stamping earlier, so we are going to use the Misty because I had some where the word didn't come out all the way, and yeah, we're not going to do that. I'm thinking about making it kind of like a little banner here on the side. So we're going to put it, let me put the magnet down. I recently got the Memory Misty because I was going to get the larger size one. And I thought, oh, I'll get the biggest one, and that just covers everything. The only bad thing about it is when you like open it up to stamp, it literally takes up your whole desk. And I will be the first to say my desk is always a mess. So it's kind of difficult sometimes to use that, but I mean, it has its place. I still reach for this small one for things like this. Now, when you're doing small sentiments like this, you don't want to like squish down on either your stamp block or your Misty lid, because if you do, you're just going to distort the letters, which is also something I did when I was using the block. I've just become so accustomed to using this Misty that I'm just horrible now at stamping with the block. I used to only use rubber stamps with wooden blocks, and to this day I don't understand how I used to, if I messed up and didn't stamp it well, I would just take that sucker and line it up and stamp it again and get it perfectly straight, and I can't even do that with a clear stamp now. So I'm just going to say I'm going to attribute that to the fact that I'm older and I can't see as well. We'll go with that. Just going to trim this up and probably not straight. Again, me and my crookedness. This is why I did it with the trimmer, because I thought I could get it straighter, but it seems that my eyes are very crooked today. Yeah, because that is definitely not straight. I'm going to try to eyeball it, and we may end up having to stamp this again. Let's see how horrible that is. That's not too bad. We're just gonna go with it. So let's see. Uh-oh. All right, so I did a oopsie there and tore the paper when I cut it. So I think, like Bob Ross said, sometimes you have happy accidents. You mess things up, and it's just an opportunity to change your design and have a different design than what you normally would have done. There's nothing wrong with that. All right, so here's our sentiment. And, you know, I didn't do this on the other cards, but I think I'm gonna use some foam tape on this one. Just have something a little bit different. Why not? Okay. So we'll put this up here, Do we like it at the top, or would it look better at the bottom? Oh, it says it wants to be on the top, so that's where it's gonna stay. I had black ink on my fingers earlier, and I think I got black ink on everything. All right, so there's our card. Beautiful Distress Oxide background with the resist. Using some stamped images. Take you through the rest of them that I made. It's feel good to use some of these images I've had laying around for a while. There's the Winnie the Pooh and the cute little mouse. I love mice. I collect all things mice. All right. I hope you'll try this technique. And remember, if you don't have color backgrounds, use stickers. Just use whatever you have if you don't have colored images. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And I hope you all have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.